Your neighbor knows things about your dog that you do not. They know exactly what time the barking starts. They know precisely how long it lasts. They know which days are the absolute worst. They have heard sounds echoing through the walls that you will never hear simply because you are never there when they happen. Most dogs appear completely normal the moment you walk back through the front door. They are calm, perhaps a little excited, acting as if nothing happened. And from their immediate perspective, nothing did. But you clearly see the evidence. The couch cushion shredded into pieces on the living room floor, the corner of the rug chewed down to the bare threads. The very specific heavy silence of a dog who knows the atmosphere in the room has shifted. You probably assumed it was just boredom. Maybe you even thought it was spite. A deliberate punishment for leaving them behind. But behavioral researchers have been doing something for decades that most pet owners never do. They leave a camera running, they walk out, and they quietly watch. What these cameras capture, hour by hour, heartbeat by heartbeat, is one of the most revealing discoveries in animal psychology. Your dog is not just missing you when you are gone. A very specific, cascading neurological crisis is happening inside their brain, and it begins long before you even touch the doorknob. Welcome to the mind behind the paws. Let us examine the exact timeline of separation panic. In 2010, researchers from the University of Milan installed cameras in the homes of 23 dogs diagnosed with separation distress. They watched what happened immediately after the owners left. The results permanently shattered the idea that dogs just slowly get bored. Vocalization, including barking, whining, and howling, began on average at exactly 3 minutes and 15 seconds after the departure. Destructive behavior began within 7 minutes. 7 minutes is all it takes before your shoes, your door frames, or your furniture are at risk. But the most fascinating discovery was what happened next. That frantic first phase, the desperate scratching at the door, does not follow a clean, gradual decline into sleep. Instead, the dog's nervous system enters a cyclical loop. Every 23 to 28 minutes, there is a massive new spike of panic, a renewed burst of movement, pacing, or vocalization, followed by a quieter period, and then another violent spike. They are not settling down. They are cycling through exhausting waves of acute chemical stress. The silence between these spikes is not calm. It is sheer biological exhaustion. To fully understand this mechanism, we have to look at what happens before you even leave the house. In the 1980s, veterinary behaviorists documented a phenomenon that has been confirmed repeatedly in clinical settings ever since. Dogs with separation anxiety begin showing measurable stress responses while their owner is still in the house. Through simple classical conditioning, your dog has learned to chain your entire departure routine backward. You check your phone, you put on your shoes, you pick up your keys. Each of these actions, repeated hundreds of mornings in a row, has become a neurological trigger. The trigger means one terrifying thing: isolation is imminent. By the time you reach the door, some dogs are already panting, pacing, or following you from room to room. Their sympathetic nervous system is already flooding their bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. The standard advice for years has been to desensitize your dog to these departure cues. But your dog is not afraid of your shoes. They are terrified that their primary attachment figure, their fundamental biological anchor to safety, is vanishing. When the door finally closes, the visual and auditory cues of your departure are processed by the dog's thalamus and sent directly to the amygdala, completely bypassing the prefrontal cortex. This triggers an immediate release of corticotropin-releasing hormone, sending the dog into a full autonomic fight-or-flight state. Their heart rate accelerates rapidly. The destruction of the doorframe or the window blinds is not an act of malice. It is a primal, evolutionary attempt to dig through a physical barrier to reunite with their survival anchor. It is vital to distinguish between normal chewing and anxiety-driven destruction. Normal chewing is rhythmic and self-soothing, targeting appropriate toys or bones. Anxiety-driven destruction is frantic, targeted primarily at exit points or items heavily saturated with your scent, like couch cushions or worn clothing. They are attempting to physically surround themselves with your scent, to artificially soothe the neurological firestorm happening in their brain. Now, let us look at the exact moment you return. The Royal Veterinary College conducted a comprehensive longitudinal study tracking 145 dogs to see what factors predicted separation issues. They found something that surprised many professional trainers. Emotional, lingering goodbyes did not cause separation anxiety. What actually mattered was the return. Dogs whose owners came home, found destruction, and responded with visible upset, raised voices, or prolonged frustration directed at the dog were 6 times more likely to develop severe separation-related behaviors. Here is the precise neuroscience behind why this happens. Your dog cannot cognitively link your current frustration to the chair leg they destroyed 4 hours ago. Their brain simply does not possess the episodic temporal reasoning to connect a distant past event to a present consequence in that manner. What they do successfully connect is your arrival with immediate conflict. Gradually, your return becomes an unpredictable event they must defensively prepare for. A dog that is anxious about you coming home becomes a dog that is terrified of you leaving. The two ends of the absence become psychologically welded together. You leave, they panic. You return, they panic for a completely different reason. Their entire day becomes an unbroken, exhausting cycle of anticipatory stress. And what about the dogs that just sit quietly? In the 1960s, psychologist Martin Seligman conducted groundbreaking experiments that became foundational to our understanding of trauma. He discovered that when animals are exposed to inescapable stress, they eventually stop trying to escape. He called this learned helplessness. However, in a major neurobiological revision of this theory in 2016, Seligman recognized that passivity is not something animals learn. Passivity is the brain's default biological response to prolonged, inescapable stress. A dog that stops barking after an hour alone has not accepted the situation. They have simply stopped believing that their vocal behavior can change the outcome. Their amygdala is still firing threat signals, but the motor response shuts down to conserve energy. This brings us to a crucial piece of the puzzle that is rarely discussed outside of clinical veterinary research. In 2019, a team from Linköping University in Sweden measured long-term cortisol levels in 58 dog and owner pairs. They did not look at the immediate cortisol spike of a bad day. They looked at the slow, hormonal accumulation over weeks and months, captured precisely in hair samples. The levels were deeply synchronized. A stressed owner meant a stressed dog. A calm owner meant a calm dog. But when the researchers looked at the direction of this relationship, the answer was definitive. The owner's cortisol levels predicted the dog's cortisol levels, not the reverse. This means a dog already carrying a chronically elevated baseline of stress does not start their separation from a neutral state. They start at a severe biological deficit. The 8 hours you are gone do not happen in isolation. They are heavily layered on top of the systemic stress they have absorbed from your shared environment. The pet industry has built a massive market around separation anxiety, selling pheromone diffusers, calming supplements, anxiety wraps, and white noise machines. Most owners will tell you the clinical results range from modest to entirely non-existent. The reason is simple. Most of these products treat the 8 hours when the owner is already gone. The true point of intervention is the other 16 hours. Puzzle toys, for instance, provide a few minutes of cognitive engagement, but for highly anxious dogs, they can completely backfire. The exact moment the food is gone, the dog suddenly registers your absence, and the acute panic reaction initiates instantly. The only method with consistent, say peer-reviewed clinical evidence is graduated exposure. This does not mean leaving for 5 minutes and hoping for the best. It means starting with seconds. You walk to the door. You return. You touch the handle. You return. You are methodically building a history of return so gradual that the dog's nervous system never has the chance to escalate into a threat response. To a human, standing at your front door for 30 seconds and walking back inside feels absurd. It feels like you are doing nothing, but you are not teaching obedience. You are providing enough systematic repetitions of a sequence so that the dog's internal predictive model begins to update. You are physically recalibrating their neurobiology to understand that the opening of the door and the closing of the door are the exact same event. Just in a different chronological order. Clinical professionals report a consistent tipping point. Once a dog can tolerate about 40 minutes of absence without distress, progressing to 4 or 8 hours tends to follow relatively quickly. The 40-minute mark is the specific threshold where the dog has accumulated enough neurological evidence to overwrite their previous panic response. For severe cases, clinical studies show that combining behavioral modification with targeted neuromedication dramatically improves success rates. The medication does not make them sleepy. It physically alters their brain chemistry, shifting their cognitive bias from pessimistic to neutral, making their brain structurally capable of forming new, safe beliefs about being alone. Your dog is not destroying your home out of spite. They are responding to the absolute collapse of their biological safety network. They need you to help them painstakingly rebuild it, second by second, until the heavy silence of an empty house is no longer processed as a mortal threat. If this deep dive changed how you view your dog's psychological struggles, you need to see what we uncover next. You think you know why your dog shakes during a storm, but you are only seeing the absolute surface. Next up, the psychology of the dog that trembles at fireworks. It's not overreacting. The auditory neuroscience behind this will shock you. See you there.